Most investing principles come from life principles. What is good in life is good in investing.
Do you know what the word investing means?
Active is a pair, passive is another pair. दोनों झगड़ा करते हैं. So you have one big mistake that you make. You come to India and you think you've come from a developed country and you subconsciously look down on everything here. I think one of the greatest unlearnings is not to be arrogant about people who have built here. I think product design is one of my stronger suites.
How has that whole experience been?
It's actually been very gratifying. I never wanted to be an investment banker, even though it was a very popular thing to do. And you make a lot of money, and I'm sure they add a lot of value, but I never wanted to do that.
We are here because people love to hear you. And, we've seen so many of your videos go viral. We believe that the story of an investor's access to why he should invest is still being written or still being spoken about. And therefore, we are here today to talk to you so that it makes sense to people. And we do not want to use jargons. We want to make it as simple and as conversational so they enjoy it. And I'm also hoping with a good intention that this becomes as viral as most of your videos are, because, the minute you speak and the video is posted, it is got a very high chance of being viral. And I'm sure you must have been receiving those feedbacks.
Okay. I'll try and not get into trouble.
2 weeks ago, we did a podcast with ex-CMC Vellore doctor was heading the place, and now he's a head for ITC Healthcare. We spoke about health, and he was talking about all the traits that someone has to do well in health was equivalent to wealth also.
So I was shooting with Neeta Lula, prominent designer, and one of Bollywood's biggest makeup artists. So I was just like getting insight into weddings, brides, and everything. And most of the stuff they taught me about fashion has a lot to do with investing. All the fashion principles are...
Is it a bias we have? Because I felt the same when the doctor was giving us advice.
No, but this is my argument, because my whole dal chapel theory is gone very wide. Right? My argument is that most investing principles come from life principles. What is good in life is good in investing.
Do you know what the word investing means? Investment means?
Investment. No.
Investments means vestments are the uniform that you wear for clergy. So therefore, if you have to be in investments, you actually have to wear a garb. That garb is actually what makes you an investor. So if you notice the word investor, that is investments. This was old English parlance for someone who was wearing a shirt and pant, but when he went to behind the church and the altar, he had to wear that white cassock or black cassock. Investments. So the room behind the church is actually called vestry or vestments. The word investments is you're being in a particular role.
So it's very cool.
Same thing with audit.
Yeah, same thing. No, audit I know.
Yeah, audit is the auditory senses when they read the church accounts, because people were not familiar with reading and writing and they didn't know how to tally.
So it's the auditory senses.
If you approved something by hearing through auditory senses, that means it was correct. And either speak now or hold your peace forevermore.
Very interesting. So Neeta Lula told me this thing, which is kind of cool. She's like, most brides come to us and they say, and maybe it's my bias, but she's like, I want to look like that. I want that outfit. I want that color of lipstick because I saw it online or I saw a friend of mine wear it. And then they wear it and it doesn't look right on them. And what's right for your body is obviously not right for my body. And then I was like, Neeta, it's the exact same thing with money, right? People will come to us and say, that guy recommended to stop it. And what's right for his portfolio is not right for yours. And then the other one she told me, which I thought had a lot to do with financial advisory, is like, they'll see something that a designer has recommended and they'll say, but iske sleeve kaat do, iska ye kar do, iska wo kar do.
And tweak it.
And then it won't look the same as the pic. And so there's a certain amount of trust you have to place in the designer.
So it's a similar thing. We spoke about passives.
Yeah.
Passives are meant to be DIY and fill it, shut it, forget it. People today use passives to create an active strategy by timing it. Just imagine the whole purpose of passive is defeated.
It's to be passive. So I've gone to many sessions where investors and IIP will stand up and say, ETF ke baare mein suna hai. What's an ETF? Can I do an ETF? And I'm like, ask your advisor. It may be good for you. It may not be good for you. But just because you've got... At the same one, so there was this SWP reel that had gone totally viral. So now suddenly about people in my family are like, do I need an SWP? I'm like, but you don't need money back. You want to make more investments. So just because you saw a reel on SWP doesn't mean it make...
On that note, maybe this will be great information for people who are listening to us.
Yeah.
Your verdict, I know you run a lot of ETFs.
Yeah.
And some of the ETFs that you run are unique to you and your organization. People want that binary outcome answer, active versus passive.
I have an answer. The versus is a stupid word. No, I will explain the answer. The versus is a word. Active is a pair. Passive is another pair. दोनों झगड़ा करते हैं. That's what versus means. That's for an AMC. There's no active or passive. I run both. For an advisor, there's no active or passive. You have both to recommend. For a client, there's no active or passive. You have both to choose from. So, Santosh, Pizza Hut or Italian fine dining? I'm asking you, Pizza Hut or Italian fine dining?
My answer is both.
And why? It depends on the occasion. You may be roaming around in China looking for a quick grab before going, and you just want something standardized, and you're like, yeah, I'll do Pizza Hut, yeah, kaun jaake, menu translate kare, and I need something cheap fast.
Yes.
Now, today's my husband's birthday. If I took him to Pizza Hut, it may not be pretty, right? So I'm ready to pay the premium for active. So versus is a form of debate, and debates are good for media, but we're not media.
Yes.
Debates are for media.
Yeah, sometimes I feel most of these questions are also so geared up to create sensation on social media.
They're very drama.
I don't know whether it solves anybody's problems, but it's just to create that extra likes and shares.
And more people spend time debating. Oh, all active fund managers are bad because they charge fees, or like all passive, rather than being discerning and going into the details of passive funds, going into the details, improving the nuance with which they study these funds. So versus actually is very unhealthy for your mind because you focus on the wrong thing.
I think it's just very well said. I think for all of us viewers listening to this, it's a great analogy that the enemy of the question is versus.
It's not active or passive.
It's not active or passive. I think that's a good perspective. I think we need to speak more on this. Coming to talk about celebrating your husband's birthday, you also have a toddler at home.
I do.
How is that experience? Now, is it chocolates every time or a toy every time you go back after a couple of days of travel, or what is it? Because there's an unspoken rule that if someone is traveling at home, you have to go back with a box of chocolates or a toy. Is it different in your house?
See, he wants more gifts, but my son doesn't like sugar. He doesn't like chocolates.
What are you doing to raise kids without chocolate and sugar?
Eggs and chicken and yogurt and paneer and protein and broccoli. So he doesn't like chocolate. He likes gifts. He doesn't like toys too much either. He likes books. And he likes clothes. So typically I travel to a lot of states. Now sometimes I shop for him, but usually my branch guys or MFDs people are very kind. So they usually give something. But he now understands. In fact, I travel so much that there's a small suitcase, and when I go out the door, he says, bye. He brings a suitcase, and I'm like, Remy, today I don't need suitcase. Mama is not going to airport.
Wow. It kind of puts pressure on us because we're in financial services and we have kids watching us. And they'd like to also, follow some of the things that we do. And what we like to do is sometimes, our biases is that in finance, we always talk about if you were younger, what you would do.
Oh God, yeah.
Right? And therefore, now we want to teach our children to be so savvy with money. We started at really young age. Like from the piggy box, telling them to save. Does it also happen in your house? Because it happens in middle class houses like mine.
So he's too young for... Yes and no, right? So we started an SIP for him when he was super young. And credit to my hubby, because I think he took my son to the Aadhaar card office when my son was a month and a half old, which is pretty brave. And then he got him a bank card and bank account and passports. My son's only traveled on his own passport, so he did all the docs. We started an SIP early because, we just believe that stuff. And we keep telling relatives not to buy him the third ball pool or the fifth stroller, but, gift him mutual fund units. You can't do that, but, gift him something that we can put in his bank account and translate to investments. But we actually don't talk money too much at home. He's also too young. He's 2.5. Although he can say mutual fund. He says mutual fund. But I think what's important at a young age, Santosh, there are two things I think about. One is values, right? So subconsciously, I want to teach him the right values. Like, not to be excited about something just because it's expensive or less excited because it's cheap. And I think it's an amazing thing about kids. Like, someone had gifted me a very basic umbrella for kids. It was a return gift from a party. I swear that umbrella was $250, $300 and his kids was... My son was so happy seeing it. Now, he doesn't go and check what brand it is, right? And I think that's something to learn from kids.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
I hope he retains that. And the second thing which my hobby and I think a lot about is how to instill gratitude and hunger in this generation of kids. Because financially, and I'm sure this is something all of us think about, they're growing up with a lot more than we grew up.
Absolutely.
A lot more resources, but I also believe a lot more opportunity because of a different kind of India. So how does he not take what we have for granted and still have the fire in the belly to like do something? These are things that we intend to talk about. I'm sure money will come later. I really don't want him to know the size of his portfolio because I'm sure by the time he grows up with us doing SIPs, it'll be kind of large. So I really don't want him to know that
So
for a while.
he will not learn the power of compounding. He'll see the power of compounding.
He should build compounding. He should learn the power of opportunity that leads to compounding. He should learn the input, not the output.
That comes to a question that I want to ask you is, considering all your educational background that you already have, in fact, that's a good enough subject for a podcast, your education and the travels that you had. So many of your videos have gone viral, especially the way you chose your career and all those things that you made. I'm certain that running a large fund house like yours, there must be a lot of unlearnings from the education that you actually have been through, right? And some of those key things you want to share with us?
Oh yeah, there's been I remember this really funny story when I had come back from the US to set up Forefront Capital. And obviously highly pedigreed background, everything. One of the first brokers I met was a friend of my father-in-law's, and he taught me a really great lesson. He's like, people like you have all the pedigree in the world, you have all of this. But you have one big mistake that you make. You come to India and you think you've come from a developed country and you subconsciously look down on everything here. Yahan to pollution hai, yahan to traffic hai, yahan people are lazy, this doesn't work. And he's like, don't make that mistake because you have to compete here, right? And you have to compete with people who are doing very well in this chaos and some bloody smart people out there. So I think one of the greatest unlearnings is not to be arrogant about people who have built here. That honestly was my first unlearning when I came here. There was another interesting one because I had been so used to doing financial product design in the US. It was for a very different audience, a far more savvy audience. And I think in Forefront Capital, the first few products we designed were truly terrible. So I think just unlearning how to think about product design, how to think, does a fund really solve a problem? And I think product design is one of my stronger suites personally today. I also have, an AMC CEO is like a not very well paid public speaker because we do so much mass public speaking, right? Thousands and thousands of people we address days in small parts of India. So I come from wholesale, was scared to hold a mic in 2017. So this whole unlearning process of how to communicate has been a big one.
In fact, you said about your speaking engagements. In fact, you are one of those well-known popular faces for the mutual fund industry, and also coming from your background and also at your age, the kind of stuff that you're doing must mean a lot. And how has that whole experience been?
It's actually been very gratifying, right? Because you expect you'll be a mutual fund CEO, a certain number of people will report to you, you'll manage money, you'll make money, all of these things you expect. But you don't expect that you're going to go to Navsari and have 1,000 people listening to you and giving you a standing ovation. You don't expect that you're going to go to Ghata village, which is somewhere in Gurgaon, and go to the chemist to buy medicine and have some guy take a selfie with you. These are things you don't bargain for. And so you don't expect that you'll go to an airport and go through the security thing and the security guard will say, Madam, I've seen some podcast of yours, I started in SIP.
Excellent.
None of these things, this part of life you don't bargain for. You don't even bargain for the fact that, you'll walk the red carpet with Tiger Shroff. It is an event because you're one of the most influential Indians in India because GQ magazine put billboards. So I think this stuff is very gratifying.
So that's why it makes it so interesting that whenever the SIP numbers come out,
Yeah.
we see newer additions and we see
Yeah.
that month-on-month number growing.
And the
I
media
think
always gets surprised.
we must say one of the contributors you, because when things go viral,
Yeah.
at least for the sake of virality, people want to know what is an SIP, what is an
Yeah,
SWP,
yeah,
what is
they
a
will.
mutual fund. So today, I've been over 20 years in this industry. We used to take so much effort to
Oh.
explain what an SIP is. SWP is a different story
Ah.
altogether. Mutual funds, even now people ask me, Santosh, what do you think is the big difference between mutual funds and shares? Because they think it's two very different
now
train of
any
thoughts.
house help that comes to work for me, they're like, Madam, SIP karengi if we work with you.
Exactly.
This is amazing.
It's people like you who's really contributed so much to making this a household subject. That comes to another important point. At the organization that you number one, created wealth for so many hundreds and thousands of people. And that's been already seen and experienced by people. And I'm sure that also translated to you also personally, generating wealth for clients and generating wealth for yourself. Has this changed you? Seeing the opportunity that one, you could contribute to so many people generating wealth, and two, maybe you also growing up the ladder in terms of wealth. Has it changed you with more money, less money?
Yeah and no. I think I came from the HNI institutional business overseas. And in my heart, I always wanted to do retail because I know the power of being able to influence a large number of people. Quite frankly, that's what motivates me about India. I never wanted to be an investment banker, even though it was a very popular thing to do. And you make a lot of money, and I'm sure they had a lot of value, but I never wanted to do that.
Because you already had a lot of money?
No, actually, no. And so people think I came from a background with a lot of money. My father was a government servant, right? You just don't make a lot of money. So I studied through college on financial aid for the most part. So I never had a lot of money. But for me, if you are working in financial services, you will make a certain amount of money. पैसा तुम बनाओगे, right? But for me, what matters also is impact. And I think the ability to touch so many people because they are doing that is nice. What is changed from a wealth point of view, as we have grown larger in size, some people say, you manage 1.5 lakh crores. And I'm like, yeah, it's not 1.5 lakh crores that Radhika Gupta manages. It's 1.5 crores that Edelweiss Mutual Fund manages of other people's money.
Yes.
And also, as I become more visible, a lot of people will write to me, we saw a podcast and started an SIP. Oh, that spooks me out, man. Because it's very gratifying, but they're trusting me. And they'll sometimes write, I'm starting an SIP because I want to send my daughter to this course in 10 years. It starts to feel very personal.
Let me just stop you here. You said HNI.
Well,
we at Germinate have actually tried to take this forward and say, we call HNI for someone who's got money, high net worth individual. But we believe what we need in this ecosystem is a HTI, high trustworthy individual.
Yeah.
What we are trying to do with, speaking to people like you in this podcast is get people to hear more high trustworthy individuals that are not there selling stuff, but are actually helping people. That's why I said, how was the wealth creation journey changed you as a person? For me also, it's so gratifying to look at some of my investors and say, thanks to you for the last 8-10 years.
Nice
my small SIPs have bundled into a large amount of money and grown even more than that.
And it's grown, in many cases, it's grown people's money, but it's also grown people's self-confidence.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you a story from home. My mother-in-law was largely a real estate investor, like many people of that generation. And then a few years ago, Avi and I got her started with mutual funds. And, now, over the last 2 years, she's become the biggest ambassador of mutual funds. And she's doing conservative products, equity savings, balanced, all that kind of stuff. And she's saying, this is an instrument that's given me dignity of money. I've never heard this phrase from my industry. I loved it because she's like, it's the one place where my money and I can get it back in 2 days. I don't need to go and ask someone.
It's sometimes the most underrated power of investing in mutual funds that people have such easy, simple access to their own money.
Amazing. And like this word, dignity of money, this whole phrase.
It's the first time that even I'm hearing.
Isn't it beautiful to know that? And it's right, because you do an insurance policy, you can't break it immediately.
You should know what the process is to get your money back. I mean, you go through it once and
I'm not saying it. You do a bank deposit, it's hard to break. You have property, don't even get started. With a mutual fund, you get your money back in 2 days.
Absolutely.
And now, as she's getting older, and we both believe, Nalin and I have been doing well enough for ourselves, that as our parents get older, we want them to live a good life, like
Yes.
enjoy it. They're in their late 60s, 70s. We want them to enjoy themselves. They've given up, they're standard Indian middle class parents who have
I
made a
think
lot of
it's a very
sacrifice.
interesting point you're making, that we are actually dealing with a generation that is so good at saving.
Yeah.
Now they've transitioned from saving to financial investments, which is giving them way better yield than just putting their money in bank or bank deposits, which is a good thing for them because now they feel a lot more secure.
Yeah.
But I think we need to help them now live their life,
So
because
important.
there is a large segment which is still saving and growing their money, thinking that they're going to live forever,
Yeah.
where they need to start enjoying it.
And I tell you two things here. So, like with my mother-in-law, we started these investments. Now they've built. Now she started an SWP. Because the investments, it's not a very, she's maybe taking 1-2% back in SWP. It started 2 months ago, this SWP. She's so excited with this SWP. She's like, I'm going to travel. She's a very simple person, but travel with her friends and all is one of the things she enjoys. So she travels overseas. She lives in nice places. Her friends ask her, how are you handling this travel? How are you affording this travel? And she's like, with my SWP. And it's so cool because, Santosh, this is the generation of India. I have this theory that there are 3 generations of Indians. And this generation of India was the Indians of scarcity.
Correct.
They were the post-independence,
Right.
China war, Pakistan war, emergency, tangi ke halat dekhe.
At some level, the ration card people.
This is that ration card generation. In their 60s, 70s, and I believe they were some of the best set of parents.
Yes.
We just inherited the coolest.
They're all great economists. They manage so much with so little.
And they have such optimism. They have the right values. They talk hard work. Like, I don't know if my generation of parents will be as good. They gave us time. They brought us up with less. So they're a great generation. And so I think this ration card generation, in some sense, they deserve in their 60s, 70s, 80s. If you call it their last innings for it to be more
I would say
beautiful.
more than anything else, they need to get rewarded for all the stuff they did.
Yeah.
And right now
And all
is
the
the
stuff
time.
they couldn't do.
Yeah. And I think today, when you see a 25-year-old taking a personal loan to go on a vacation,
Yeah.
on the other end, you have a 65-year-old who's got so much money that they for sure will not spend it in their lifetime. You are that much more interested to see that they live that and enjoy that life. So
whatever it is, babe, whether it's a vacation, whether it's a new golf set, whatever makes them happier. But it's so important.
So we are caught in this dilemma. We are now forced to tell young people, remember, life is not just for today. You got to save for tomorrow. You have to speak to the senior generation, tell them, boss, remember, it's not that we are all going to be there forever. Enjoy it for the next 15, 20, whatever number of days you got. If you can go economy, try and see if you can push it to business class. If you can go for a short duration vacation, go for a long duration vacation. I've had the privilege that just in this year to convert 3 or 4 of my clients' domestic travel to international travel and the international economy to business class. And believe me, they come back with gifts and some even sent me notes saying, Santosh, we didn't even think we could fly business.
Because these are people who used to save money on bus tickets so that somehow we could go to school or get something more.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Radhika, thank you so much for giving us this time. I know this is a novel working day and you've got meetings before and after this, but to be in your office to shoot you in Mumbai is a rare privilege, and thank you for taking the time out.
My pleasure.